this is number 12 of our study groups, and all 12 have made it to the editor, and we're very close. I say it every week. And we're ready to get started into mastering precision. And I don't know if you noticed on the ad, I put ... because I have very few regrets. I am not a regret kind of gal, but if I was going to do this whole feet first thing over, I would call it handling solutions. And because that's what it is. And I think that people see feet first and they think, oh, it's just about footwork. It's just about footwork. And as feet first grows in my mind, and as I expand on the teaching of the program, I certainly would not say it has anything less to do with footwork, because you guys, you know, sometimes when you write and you produce material for learning, you know, you find better ways to do stuff. And I hope you do. I mean, I can remember one time I was at Nancy Guy's. I took lessons from Jim Basic and Nancy Guy's for many, many, many years. We started in agility together and loved my years down at Power Pause. Nancy's such a brilliant trainer. And I know much of what I know was gained through long discussions with Nancy as we discovered things together and taught each other stuff. At least I hope she could say that about our life together in those days. And one time we'd been teaching, you know, we had been going to her house and learning this thing and learning it and learning it. I'd been teaching it to my students for years. And one day I went down there for lessons. She goes, you know, I think we're on the wrong track about this. I think we should do this instead. Look what I learned. And I had a cow, because I'm like, Nancy, you know, this goes against, this is too different. Like, you know, I can't just go to my students and say, okay, now we're going to do it like this, when I've been selling them and taking their money to say, I know the best way and this is how we're going to do it. And now we're doing something that, I mean, it was really counter indicative, I think is the right way to say it, of what we'd been doing. And she looked me dead in the eye and she said, evolve or stagnate. And I went, okay, all right, I'll evolve. I'll choose evolve. But I like it that I'm paranoid about those changes, because I think agility is a language. And if we are saying to our dog, I'm going to teach you German, and we're going to speak in German, and you can count on me to speak in German, and I need you to perfect the German language, and then we're going to throw in a little French and a little Italian and a little whatever, you know, at some point it's not going to be fair to somebody. It's probably the dog. So so I mind my language very, very carefully. And my students, you know, I drive them nuts, because they'll say, well, this will work in this situation. And I'm like, it will, but you're using a different way to say something. And next week, you're going to want to say it the other way. And you're asking your dog to get fluent in a language between the two of you. And why flip-flop if you don't have to? Well, it would be easier here. And I think he'll understand. I think he'll read it okay. And it's like, yeah, but you're not strengthening your language if you take liberties. So I am paranoid about that, and I don't take liberties. And that was a very long time to say, I still really like feet first. That was a very long time to say, I'm very, very grateful that the only thing that I wish was different about this program was that I had named it Handling Solutions instead of Feet First, because this ditch, what we're going to talk about today, is anybody that learns from me will say this is the stuff that we talk about every single week. It's my go-to on decision making. If you address these 5 key elements while you're handling, your decision should be made easier. You should have something to sink your teeth into. I think the thing I would love to help people with is to have more confidence in their handling decisions in their lead outs, like where do I stand when I lead out? When does the turn cue start? What is the turn cue? All the key elements. Because I think, I mean, you guys, if you're trying to teach a language, so you get hired to teach German, it's going to be a whole hell of a lot easier if you're fluent in that language. So what I want to help people do is get fluent. And what I've tried to do for many, many years, I don't know, at least since, you know, in the olden days, we had Linda Mecklenburg and Greg Darrett, and Linda Mecklenburg lived on the other side of the country, and Nancy Geis flew Greg out here, and we learned that, and it worked and for us. And now we've got other languages. It's a big, wonderful world. And I can't remember where I was going with that, but it's important to I want to teach this language that makes sense to me. And I've tried, I can help people with the other languages because I can get the gist of them enough, but it doesn't bring me joy as much. So I'm encouraging you to this whole idea of find what works for the dog. We got to be sure, just because the dog read it in a particular sequence doesn't mean it works long-term for the dog. It doesn't mean that. So be wary of find what works for the dog, and make sure that it's find what works for the dog long-term. So mixing those languages up might look like it's working for that particular sequence, but will it actually mean the same thing later on? So again, I know that I'm pontificating here a little bit. I'm wanting to get to these 5 key elements, so that's what we'll do now. So the part of the reason why I wanted to do these 5 key elements now was because in August, coming right up on August 3rd, Clean Run is going to be selling a real nice special where the Feet First program is sold either at its regular rate or a discounted, but then there's a Zoom webinar that I'll be doing live. I'm going to do 2 of them to make the time convenient. They'll be the same thing, so you're not missing anything if you can only do 1. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a taste of it in case it's something that you want to join me on. But to me, it's everything that I do. So I'm going to look at you all to nod heads. There, most of you have your cameras off. You can thumbs up me. I'll turn participants on. So there were some videos that were referenced in the article. Can you give me a blue thumbs up by going to participants, and you'll see a thumbs up thing if you were able to look at those. So if you're going, what videos? What the heck is she talking about? That's probably a no for you. But in the article, there were a couple of links. You can also give me a thumbs up if you prefer. Okay, good. So Gwen is telling me she did not look at the links. And I don't see blue thumbs or live thumbs or cartoon thumbs from anybody else.
I don't see a way to do a thumbs up or thumbs down on participant screen, just to let you know.
At the bottom, does it say, or hand, does it say hand?
It does have to raise hand, yes.
So raise hand is what I'm talking about, sorry. There's also a cartoony thumbs up thing that you can do. So if somebody wants to do raise hand just to show everybody else what that looks like. So Deborah just did, and is it Kawa? Am I saying that right? You can unmute yourself if you want. So that's what the hand looks like. So it looks like most people didn't. So I am gonna try today. I got those videos up, and I've done some Zoom experiments with videos and not been impressed with how the video works. So before you leave in chat, you guys can put in if you're able to see the videos well. So I've got them here for you today. So I'm going to screen share now, and we'll go to the article. And often I say at the beginning of these that that this is one of my favorite articles. And this time I'm not going to say that. This does give you the 5 key elements, but it's not one of my favorite articles because it was part of a series. It's sort of one of those articles that it describes it, but there's not a lot of the meat. So hopefully I can give you some of the meat. This is part 2 of the series. Part 1 was, and I'll give it to you here in 2 minutes. Let's time me and see if I can do it. Why feet first. So I was a good handler and a good trainer, and I was doing well in the sport. And I had a friend, not very high up in the sport, somebody kind of new to the sport, say to me, I bet you could be a better handler. And I thought, well, that's a bit presumptuous of you. And I thought I was doing pretty damn good. And but then, how? How do you think I could be a better handler? And she said, you could handle better by learning some moves, by moving better. Well, I had never been athletic. And I had friends that were moving a little bit better than I was. And I just figured, well, what I was. And she said, how about if I get us a trainer and we'll see what you can do. So we hired this really cute, he was like 28 and real handsome. I was very motivated to go. And he started doing football style footwork drills. And oh my gosh, it was painful, but not for long. I was really encouraged because I could do a little and make a big difference, just like with my balance and stuff. It just a little dab will do ya. And so then I started changing direction in the way he was showing me. And I was practicing with him. And then I noticed, oh my gosh, my dogs are cueing off my footwork. And then I felt like an idiot because I had done top level competition obedience with like the queen of obedience, in my humble opinion, which is Pat Cook, who's just, I mean, she's got the art of obedience down, and everything was footwork. We'd go learn footwork from Janice DeMello, and we'd go learn footwork from Gloria. Oh, Becky, you're going to have to help me. McGrath. And, all the top people, and it was all footwork. And then I started thinking about footwork applies to every sport. And why didn't I think of this sooner? But what happened is I would set lines and my dogs would take off. So until I got good at it, I had a lot of off courses. I had about 6 months of hell and off courses because my dog was like, got it. She plants the foot, we go. Note to self, no problem. So that's how it started, that the dogs showed me that if my footwork was consistent, they'd appreciate it. And I have not looked back. I will tell you what. And I can just see, I had a dog today and we were just doing a simple figure 8 drill, young dog, and that dog gets distracted. And when we changed the timing and the consistency of the handler's footwork on a simple front cross, that dog woke right up because the dog was being ditched. The dog was going one way, the handler went the other way with precision, the same footwork, and the line was set. The handler wasn't looking the wrong direction. If you notice, the next time your dog goes off course, look which way you're facing. You may be calling them, but you're looking like you're going someplace else. So that was what the first article in the series was about, is about how I got so inspired and how I discovered through these, what I was learning with Chris, how it was affecting my dogs. So I wanted an acronym because as I was explaining all the things, it was getting too big. And one day a friend of mine and I came up with ditch. And I love that because it reminded me how 2 dogs play. They look like they're ditching each other. And it's like, I'm going that way. And then the other dog's like, you can't ditch me. And then I'm going that way. And that to me is a fun way to handle. It's not the only way to handle. I ain't saying it's right or wrong. Those days are gone. And isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful that we can pick how we like to do agility? Because now with all the languages and all the different ways, we don't get to point who's right and wrong. Those days are over. We can find a consistent way. I like performance. It's probably my obedience background. I'd rather have a smooth run than win. That's hard for me to say. And I had to really, that's a whole nother all about me story that you may or may not need. So let's go back to ditch, dog's path. And I see people walking the dog's path all the time. That's nothing new. What I don't see people understanding is how their path influences the dog. And then the people that do see how their path influences the dog, they're not really sure if it should or not. That's the tricky business. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I want you to be able to see when we record. So you're on the freeway, right? And you're coming into someone else's lane. You expect them to move over. You're taking. If you give somebody a lane, that's yours to come into it. So that's how I look at dog agility. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, my lane, if I move in, the dog might move over. But that question about, but do you want that? What about peeling off of the poles? What about that? You say you go straight and I'm going to peel off. Well, the dog is like, well, last time when you did a lateral motion cue, which in my world is a turn cue, I go this way, you go that way. So what's the dog supposed to think? So ask yourself, if I go that way, are you supposed to come with me? Well, yeah, but not in these scenarios. Well, not if that, not. So how do you tell your dog this is that scenario and that isn't? And some of it's easier said than done, you guys, but I feel like the more times I want my dog to ignore a lane change, the more clearer I want to be about that. So when I talk about dog's path, I'm not just understanding my dog is going to land over here instead of here. And I'll tell you, that took me a long time to learn. Here's a fun thing for you to do. The next time you're on a course, identify every jump as to whether or not you want that dog to take that bar, every jump, in extension or collection. And then you'll really start seeing where your turns are in your course and guessing where will that dog actually land based on where he's coming from. So for me, dog's path is more than just dog's path. It's how the handler's path influences. Cue identification. Now that one seems kind of weird and it's like, well, yeah, but I got to tell you, I don't meet a lot of people coming to me for help that are crystal clear about all of their cues. Because I'll say, well, that was a rear. And they're like, well, no, it wasn't. I'm like, well, it had the key elements of a rear. Well, I never ended up on the other side of the dog. I'm like, but you set it up as such. So have you actually told your dog if you don't cross the hair of the tail that he shouldn't turn? I used to think that that was something I could have. And lucky for you, next week is rear crosses. That's going to be a good one. Come to rear crosses next week. So this cue identification just means, you guys, that you can watch another team and said, yeah, they did a front. Yeah, they did a rear. Yeah, they did a backside to a rear. They did a blind to a pull. Those are your turn cue combinations. It's just part of fluency. It's just part of your language fluency. So, and when I talk to folks, a lot of people will say, well, I don't know what I did. I'm like, well, what turn cue did you use? Well, I'm not sure, but blah, blah. No. What turn cue did you use? What turn cue do you want to use? So when we're walking courses, we're talking, which turn cue do you want to use here? Well, I'm going to do this. Well, when does it turn into a pull? We had a lot of fun with this the other day. We were doing backside flat rear crosses. And it's like, well, at what point when you start to cut behind the dog, are you actually turning into a pull? And the handler's like, well, I didn't do a pull. I'm like, well, your dog sure as shit thought you did a pull. So really understanding being able to identify what you do and say. Cue identification is verbal and physical. timing, everybody's thing is timing. I do believe that I have found a way to actually teach timing. Um, Instead of just saying you're late, do it earlier. You got to know where you're looking. And that's one of the little videos, um, a little exercise for you to do that I'll share with you if we can make that YouTube stuff work. YouTube jumps around and it feeds you what it thinks you should have. So I'm nervous about that. I'm going to tell you that right now. Cue start and end. You guys, I think this is so important. Um, I want to go back and look at that dog's path. The cue start and end. That's just like what I was talking about with the handler doing the flat rear, and as it turned, the cue was no longer setting the dog's line for the rear. As she pulled too much, it started to be a pull cue. So she had, like, when does it start for the dog? That's what I'm saying. When does it start for the dog? People get too far ahead when they're crossing a box and they look back to connect, because we're all supposed to stay connected to our dogs, and I agree. But if you start to look back, at what point does your shoulder drop far enough back that your dog thinks you're about to front cross? It's like, got it, Mom, you started a front cross. So is the start of the cue the actual cue for your dog? Do you know? So that's what cue start and ends. And then handler focus. I'm constantly amazed. I'm still learning about handler focus. Where we look is so important. In healing, we learned that in competition obedience, look down where you want your dog's butt to end up on, like a finish. And handler focus, if we're looking at the refusal line or the bar, if we're looking where we don't want the dog to go, that can cause us problems. So knowing which side of your body your chin has been assigned to, the left or the right, is important. So let's go back. I've only got the one diagram, and then I want to try to make those videos work. So this is a good example of what I'm talking about, the dog's line. So this dog actually, so the red line is the course. It's the correct course. This dog would have actually landed out here where my arrow is where the dog would have landed. The dog probably would not have landed here. He might have if he'd shot out, but the dogs usually are traveling a little bit more in straighter lines than this a bit. He probably would not have come out on this arc. He probably would have shot out straight, been more like here to here to here. So, but the red line is indicating the correct sequence. So the handler, most people will run to the obstacle, and then they will run to the next obstacle. And they're not minding whether or not they want to converge or diverge or parallel that dog's path. And I want you, when you're walking a course, to always know if you're converging on the dog's path to make something specific happen, if you're peeling off the dog's path to make something specific happen, or if your intent is to parallel that dog's path, and then how many lanes over. So this handler has run to this jump. So she's really on the path that's correct up to about here. If she went any further, she'd be cueing the back side. So if I was going from the chute, we don't have those anymore. That's a sign. At times it's like seeing the World Trade Centers in movies. If she kept going just a little bit more, that would be the line I would set out of the chute to the back side of 8. So I would not go any further than she has. But as she runs directly to the teeter, she's paralleling the path to the A-frame. So if I turned, because I want the dog to turn this much, so I have to turn this much. So if you just look at the difference between this angle, that's a right angle, and this is more like a hairpin, because that's what this dark blue line parallels the red line. This blue line parallels the path to the A-frame. And this would be the line I would be on. So if I ran directly to the teeter, in my world, I'd be cueing the A-frame because I would have to parallel the dog's path. I'd have to show the turn when the dog is in the information zone of 8 and then run this line. For me, it's all like connecting the dots. We can make flowers and barrels and circles out of connecting straight lines. So with that, I want to leave time for questions. One other thing that this article says that I want to reiterate is your footwork can be great, but if you don't understand these 5 key things, the best footwork in the world isn't gonna cut it. So learning to do your footwork with your head turned is important. And we are gonna go and give this a try here. So what I'm gonna do, you guys, because I'm scared of, I would rather show you a balance exercise right now, but I'm a little bit afraid to skip around on YouTube too much. So just trust me, we're gonna start with cue start and end. So this is an example of what I call a piecemeal front cross, and this is out of the program. Some of you may have seen it. So I'm gonna make my screen big, and what you wanna know is that in my world, my front cross is not over until my onside foot, my dog side foot, which is the opposite foot of the one I'm running on when I'm starting the front cross, because it's a side change, sets the line. So I'm trying to actually get that line set before the dog lands on the obstacle he's on, so he has access to it. So nope. Maybe if I go back to, there we go. Silly girl. See what happens when you get nervous. So this just says that each of these unwanted additional steps are delaying the end of the cue. So as I start, and this is where you're going to learn about cue start and end, guys. You're going to see when the cue starts for the dog, but how long it takes me because I'm not in the right place. And I don't get that critical step set to cue the path for the dog. So these are old videos. It's important to finish up each cue as quickly as possible. So this is Brinky, and what in my 1 jump 2 jump video, I show 2 versions of a front cross. One is where it's all upper body, so the handler is reaching out to the dog and banging the gavel, and the handler is sideways, like that. So this is my onside foot. The dog has already landed. So I'm calling this a piecemeal front cross because Brink should think that we're going to this jump next because of where this foot is pointing. So if there was an arrow shooting out of this foot, and I actually used to teach this, you know, just get their attention until I realized how critical it was to set the line. So I'm going to show you at what point. So the line is still not set. Still not set. Now the line is set because the onside foot has planted. So, I mean, I would want to have that foot showing the dog the direction of the course when the dog is in the information zone of this jump. So yeah, I practice doing them pretty fast. The footwork itself, it's a 3-step footwork. So I would call that a piecemeal front cross because I started the front cross like when I got into the position, and then I stood still and banged the gavel sideways. And then I eventually got around to finishing it up. So I piecemealed it. So this one takes forever. This one is like, so I'm going to front cross. The front cross should have been done, and I'm just starting it now when my left hand has come up and this shoulder's starting to come forward. And you can bet your bottom dollar I'm screaming, but I'm still moving in this direction. So the path, the path is a lie. I'm moving towards us. I'm moving towards the camera. I still haven't turned. So now I've started the turn, but he's already landed. So this turn should be completed. So now I'm going to actually walk backwards. 1, 2. The line is still not set. So I went sideways and backwards, and there the line is technically set. And so if this is the next jump, he's supposed to go this way. This foot should be this way now. So that's the hard part about timing. When one thing is late, you get this domino effect. So this foot should be telling him, this was in the days before backsides, that it's a backside. Let's see how long it takes me. So that the direction I'm going now should have been done when the dog was here. So everything is one ahead. We're talking timing now too. It's all connected, right? And you could see that he struggled there. So this is poor Tybo. This is just painful to watch. And I recommend not naming a dog Ty if you're gonna use the word tire on course. I remember running this course, and this was a tight thing, but I want him to do a front cross to that tire. So he is way past the information zone. He's already left, and I'm just beginning the front cross. I haven't even, I'm just starting to put the brakes on to start it. So if you can see my cursor, my goal would have been to have the front cross over when he's here. Now my upper body would still be supporting the jump if you're thinking that feels early to you. But, and now again, I've stopped to get his attention because when he was in the information zone here, ladies and gentlemen, I was pointing toward where see his little face? Because I promised him when he was here that he was going to go straight. I said, there's not going to be a turn because of the way my feet were going when he was there. So he's sure. I promised him that there wouldn't be a turn. Now you can again bet that I'm screaming, but he's now landed and I still am nowhere even close to having that line set. And now I got to yell and scream. There's no collection. Of course not, because if we were walking this and you were playing that little game I told you about, where I was saying when he approaches this jump, do you want him to take it in collection or extension? I would hope that you would say I need extreme collection. So as my feet are pointing straight as I'm in the information zone, because I don't know what else to do, because I got to get to this side of this path. Now I know how to talk to my dogs to say, holy bejeebies, pal, I'm really sorry that I'm cueing extension. I am going to need you to turn anyway. So if I have a line or lane lie on my hands, I can advertise to my dogs. I know I'm cueing extension by the way and place that I'm moving, but we're still going to turn. But with him, I didn't. I was just cueing extension, and he didn't have that sophisticated of training, which to me doesn't even feel sophisticated anymore. So now I'm stuck. I thought this was going to be a throttle. I didn't even know it was a front cross. And look how now he's listening to me. Oh, Mama, it's not the poles, really, you promised. And the line's still not set, still not set. Onside foot has not planted, and it's about to plant. Now the line is set. He's already doing the obstacle. I mean, he didn't have any other choices. There was nothing else there, and I'm stopped. So that's really bad handling. And again, what I would call a piecemeal front cross. I did not get the footwork done. So there is, this is from the same program, and this is cue start and end again. These examples show when the last step of one cue is also the first step of the next cue, as well as using minimum steps to execute your cues. So this is a send cue to a front cross. The foot cue that is the send cue is also the first plant foot of the front cross. Now you guys do this all the time. So there's the send. I'm leaning back a little bit more, but the onside foot and the onside hand, my right hand and my right foot are forward. And now I'm going to weight shift back. And now front cross is done. So the onside foot has set the line before she exits. So that was a send. You do this all the time, I hope. So there's the send, even though I'm close, right into a front. And those are fun because the weight shift to get it just right are perfect. When you're leaning in to do your send and you lean back to do your front cross. This is a rear cross with the onside foot. So I've just simply stepped behind the dog. And whenever I do that, I know for sure I'm going directly into a front. So the dog is on my left. And watch my left leg. I'm just going to step laterally behind him. And now that rear cross is going to go right into a front. So these are my, this is my handling, you guys. This is how I practice that footwork over and over. And the dog, it's the cue to the dog. So here's going to be a rear cross to a pull to a front. So now I'm stepping behind the dog with the other leg, and that makes it a pull. So in the last one, I stepped laterally behind him, starting with this leg. Now I was facing this direction, same direction as the dog. Now I've done a rear directly into a pull, and I'm crossing his rear end with the other leg, with my right leg. See, it's already a pull. And then from the pull, he hasn't taken the jump yet. This is a tiny bit late. I'm going to go directly into a front cross. Now my goal is to have the onside foot planted before the dog lands. Almost made it. And there's a lot of these in the, if you haven't done feet first, I don't know about you, but I could just do this all day long. So it's like, who's going to get that foot planted first? Now I've got enough of a rotation. I'm 3/4 of the way finished. You can tell clearly I'm in decel. My position is right. There's so many other things happening. The dog knows what to do. But the way I figure it, the more things I get right, the position and the lane and the line and the verbal, the more things, the more green lights he has, faster he'll go. So his foot touched before mine. Mine has not planted and his has. So I just have fun with it, you guys. I just have fun with it. So have fun making your turn cue combinations as efficient. So we're going to do one more here. There's just a minute and a half. And I do them with a big dog and a little dog because whatever you handle a big dog. So that's a back to a SERP, to a rear, to a front. And then people say, oh, you can do it with a lot. So there's the back to the SERP, to the rear. SERP to a rear is something a lot of people can't do, straight into a front cross. And those should be fun for you guys. Those should be meat and potatoes, fun stuff for you. There was a balance one. I really do not understand how YouTube works. But if you look at that article, it was easy for me to do. I just went to Clean Run and I typed in Sandy Rogers. And there's other stuff. There's other stuff, interviews and stuff with me there. I don't know who that is. But go ahead and take a look at those. So now I'm going to open it to questions. I'm going to stop the share. And can you see me now? Did we stop the share successfully?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And help me with your name. Is it Kawa? Do you have a question?
Yes, it's Kawa.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a question for me? You got to unmute if you have a question. We can come back. Does anybody have a question? So we've got.
I
Go
have
ahead.
one. Going back to your diagram,
Mhm.
the one thing that I wasn't quite clear on is when the handler is running out of the chute,
Mhm.
it looks like when she's successful, she hasn't yet crossed the line of refusal. Maybe I'm not understanding line of refusal.
Let me go there.
Yeah, because
Let's just go there.
it felt to me like she still has to run a little more forward.
Oh, that just depends. That, yeah, this is the hard part about diagrams. It just depends on the dog. Yeah, but let me go there because that's a really good question. I appreciate it. Somebody yell at me if you can see the diagram.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so how far a handler, so you guys, this is something that I work with handlers a lot about their rate of speed, and anybody that trains with me is rolling their eyes or laughing right now. So how far, so are you talking about the refusal line of this jump?
Yes.
Okay, so I would, with Tuxedo and Quilly Bear as well, I would not pass that refusal line. And how, so you guys, the refusal line, imagine my cursor right now drawing a line, and that's it. So with Tux, I would have been exactly where my cursor is now. I would not have crossed that refusal line at all. So this handler, by crossing that refusal line or being at it, she's just at the refusal line. This handler doesn't matter. This dog is already, that issue is no longer there. And how close a handler, so this lane, like whether this lane is here for Tuxedo, I would have turned here and I would have been running on this line. So when I say lines and lanes, this is the dog's path, and some handlers would be running right along that teeter, and some handlers would be 2 feet over from that, and some would be 4 feet over from that teeter, and some people would be 2 feet over more. Am I answering your question?
I think so. Show me again the with your cursor. I thought the line of refusal, I thought that the person in the light blue,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that that's the refusal line straight across.
The
But you're
refusal
saying
line,
no.
the refusal line for this jump
Uh-huh.
goes as my cursor is going.
I see. Okay. Okay. So they both have gone in far enough. They both have gone close enough to 8 so they can turn and run in the other way.
Yeah, and some people might not, some dogs might have shot out of that chute and been over that jump, and the handler would be right back here. And some handlers with a Chihuahua that's brand new to the sport might be back here. I shouldn't, I've had plenty of little dogs that have fabulous distance skills, so nobody can pick on me there. But how far the handler goes out of the chute to get commitment to this jump is dependent on the dog and the handler.
I
So
got
now
it.
we're talking about lanes, but you wouldn't incur a refusal on the judge's scribe unless that dog took this line instead of the bar. So there's no rules about there's no like agility legal rules about what the handler does around the refusal line. There's plenty of Sandy Rogers handling rules about what the handler does with the refusal line. I should probably make that clearer as I speak when I'm telling you guys what you can and can't do. There's there's what you can and can't do legally under the judge's discretion, and then there's what the dog can and can't do. And then, so what's a refusal in scoring is if the dog takes, quote unquote, takes the refusal line on either side, passes the jump instead of taking the bar. And that's not counted in the lower levels.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that diagram? Speak now before I go.
I actually do have a question.
Okay.
So I guess my question is really a timing thing. So at what point, if you're on the dark blue line, at what point do you start turning your shoulders so you're indicating to your dog, you're cueing that they're going to 9 instead of to the A frame? Would you do that like the minute you saw commitment to that jump?
I love that question. I can answer it so clearly. I would do it at the exact moment that I had planned to do it in the walkthrough, and I wouldn't care if it was right or wrong. So when I walked that course, I made a decision about the velocity of my dog exiting the chute. And by that, I determined where my cursor is now would be the information zone. And that information zone is different all the time for me and my dogs. For the dog that I have, for the course, it's an individual thing. But because my dog loves A-frames and because I would have a chance of him coming out of that chute, the other thing would be determined if this was the corner of the course or not, or if there was more obstacles over here. Because if there was another tunnel right here, you guys, my dog would come out of that chute and see that tunnel, and my information zone, the point that I would give my cue, my verbal and physical cue in unison, would be earlier. For Quilly Bear, my 12-inch Jack Russell, the information zone would be exactly where my cursor is now. For Tuxedo, it would be here, and I would have determined that in the walkthrough. So when I'm handling the course for real, it's like taking candy from babies. All I have to do is remind myself not to look at that jump. I'm gonna look at that spot of ground, and I'm gonna watch my dog's front feet. And when his feet arrive, like he's running over a base or an imagined dinner plate or a tripwire, those are the 3 visuals I give my students, I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna rotate my whole entire body, and I'm gonna say, I use a soft here. Some people say bend for softer turns. If it was a tight turn, it would be my verbal rap cue, which is tuck, 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 tuck. So I would have predetermined the information zone in the walkthrough, and that's when I would do my cue. And I've practiced a lot that timing. And some people say, well, that might pull my dog off the jump. Yeah, it might. Yep. If you haven't taught your dog, when in doubt, take the jump. So handlers that throw parties when they give early, quote, unquote, big quotes, early cues, and they go, oh, you came with me. Aren't you a clever boy? I do not ever do that because I want my dog to go, I take the jump and then turn. She gave a turn cue, take the jump and turn, take the jump and turn. I don't want my dog going, oh, there's a jump right there. I better not take it. So we've learned how to train refusals. So the predetermined information zone is when I'm going to change the path. A turn cue is changing a line. I've determined already what lane I want to be in, which just simply means how close I'm running to the obstacles. but I would get my turn cue done on takeoff side of 8, no matter what lane I was going to end up traveling in.
Sandy, I have a question.
Okay, I got you.
So I understand obviously about you need to have the timing of when you're ending your cue, but in this case, because they're coming out of a tunnel, so even if we make it a tunnel instead of a chute where they are
Okay.
essentially blind, so isn't the information zone then actually starting sooner after the tunnel or chute because they're coming out blind? So isn't it a larger information zone because they need to know where they're going coming out of the tunnel as well as you being done with your cue before 8?
Well, we're discussing the information zone for 9, and what you're discussing is the information zone for 8, which starts at 7. So when my dog is entering the tunnel, I would be telling my dog what to expect as he exits. So in this, a turn or to go straight. You guys, when the dogs go in the tunnel, I'm telling them whether or not they're going to turn left or right, whether they should look for me, or whether or not they should look for an obstacle. So they're getting, so the information zone for 8 is entrance of 7. So yes, that would affect information zone for 9. So when my dog goes into 7, he would be hearing go on, jump, go on, jump, go on, jump. And he'd be hearing that until he hits the information zone. And then it would be here, 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 here.
So may I just clarify that? So would you actually have the information zone, I guess, for a combination of, well, of 8 would actually still be starting at the end of the tunnel as well, and so you kind of run together the information zone of 8 and 9 because you're still saying go on until you're doing the information zone for 9.
Yes.
To me, it seems like it's one kind of huge information zone in this particular case because you're finishing the obstacle 7 before you're getting to obstacle 8. Does that make
My
sense?
information, my information zone is when I'm queuing specifically for the next the skipped obstacle. That doesn't mean my dog isn't getting any other information on the rest of the pathway. So the go on is a really good example, but this is good stuff, you guys. In my world, I'm identifying the information zone only as the information for the following obstacle. So I'm calling the information zone that is before 8, nothing to do with 8 and everything to do with 9. So just because the information, where the information starts, if the distances, because every course is different. So if you said, is the information zone considered if I'm saying go on, jump, and I keep saying that as the dog goes into the tunnel, I would still, and you're probably gonna keep me awake tonight, consider this to be the information zone. And I guess we can say when the information starts, because otherwise, I mean, we could say the whole entire course is an information zone. I'm still queuing, I'm still giving the dog information throughout the entire course, but the turn cues, the specific direction changes. Like if I was saying go on, and driving a 7 jump straight line out, that would just be, I'm driving the line. Information zones in my mind's eye are queuing extension or collection. So the initial queuing of extend out of the tunnel is as the dog goes in. And then I guess, Gwen, the real answer is I'm considering the information zone where the cue starts. The dog hits that spot, I execute the new information. I hope that helps.
It does help. Because of that whole tunnel aspect about the blindness, and I was thinking back to, I think, a different article, and then we've discussed, because you have the blindness of the tunnel, that I thought that there was still some part of the information zone following the tunnel that was still associated with it because of the aspect of the non-visual, their non-visual path.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's what that was trying to just clarify that.
Yeah, if I've
where one ended and where one started.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question, and yeah, but the go on is the classic example of that. So if I had a row of straight jumps and I'm just driving the line, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. I'm not really. I guess the information. I guess what I'm really saying is it's the line set. Once I've set a line, and I've said, you can have it, just eat those obstacles. It's all yours, baby. You know, I think of the Jaws movie, don't wait for me. Don't wait for me. You just go. That line is set, and the information, while I'm repeating it verbally and I'm driving the line, I'm really considering there's not, yes, they're getting information, but my dogs are getting information every inch of the course. I'm talking specifically these spots where the dog arrives and there's new information. Okay? When they arrive in the information zone and they get new information. Anybody else about this diagram? I can stop sharing. Any other questions? If you're interested in this, especially in that, like when I was stopping it and we were looking at the timing in my Feet First program, could I get a hand raise, a little blue hand raise as to how many people have actually looked at done Feet First, like have seen the whole thing? Okay, a few of you. So you guys got to do Feet First. You just gotta, and August would be good. It's cheap. It's really, really cheap. And it starts August 3rd, and you can ask me any questions online through the 16th. It's a really good value. You have a couple of weeks to ask questions, and then you can attend a webinar. There's one on Thursday, 8:20 at 5, and then there's going to be one on Saturday at 8 in the morning, and you can come to both of them. So the value is amazing. You can ask questions for 2 weeks, and you can come to 2 live webinars. And if you study timing to the level of that work, I hope you'll be inspired to want good timing. And one of the YouTube videos that's listed in the article shows about how to do the front cross with your head turned. And if you want to learn one thing to improve your handling program, learn how to do footwork with your head turned. And again, if you go to the Clean Run YouTube channel and then put in Sandy Rogers in the Clean Run classroom, there'll be handle or focus. And there's also a balance one. Those would be the two. They're minutes. They're not this. They're 2 minutes each. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. And I'm sorry that that the YouTube didn't give those to me right like I wanted them. I'll get links next time. I'll be better prepared. I thought it would work. So thank you so much for coming. And next week is rear crosses, and I will be dissecting the rear cross as you probably have never seen it done, because I think it's the most misunderstood cue in agility. And if you aren't getting younger, you're going to want to get better rear crosses on board. So
do you know when you're going to have your pre-agility yet? Do we have a date?
I went out on a limb and said August 15th. For pre-agility. I got to tell you guys what I'm doing with that program. I'm so excited about it. I've been just going crazy trying to figure out, like, I want it to be for pet people too, and so don't be scared, and for top-notch people. And here's my goals. My goals were to have no exercises that weren't directly relevant to agility or everyday life. So no impulse control, some obedience, but it doesn't look like it. The impulse control is done through an agility thing. So by weeks 5 and 6, there's pretty extensive handling, sends, fronts, pulls, and distance work, like build. I'm so excited about it. But then what I decided is, like, well, what about if I'm really going to try to get new people into our sport? It's part of saving it, by the way. Don't turn your neighbors off to agility. Put them in my pre-agility. Your neighbor with the beagle, it's okay, I'll take them. So like, what about the hand in the collar and the crate stuff that you guys don't want to hear? You don't want that stuff. So I've made like 12 prerequisite videos that are going to live on YouTube for free for the whole world. And then they'll come with the class. So it's like, well, maybe your dog, maybe you got a rescue or something. You are having a little trouble with the hand in the collar and the recall, my tips for a recall, and the crates. Like, and here's some, I'm going to have some, I call it beyond crate training or something clever. I can't remember, but it's about taking just basic crate training and making it way more sophisticated for agility so that you can do more stuff. You know, there's people in cities that want to do, and people that want to just hone skills in their house at night when it's raining in Oregon. So thanks for asking me about it. You got a little more than you bargained for with that answer.
What ages for that pre-agility?
For the
Of the
for the
puppies, for the dogs.
That's a good one. I'll have to put that in there. Let me write that down. Ages.
Because I have, you know, a couple of my puppies that just went home. I know those people would be interested in some pre-agility stuff, but they're really little, you know, 10 weeks, 11 weeks.
Well, there's a whole hell of a lot of it that they could do.
That's what I'm thinking from what you're saying.
There's a whole lot of it that they could do. And I'm going to sell it on 2 levels. So I'm going to make it, I'm excited because I'm going to make it so they can start whenever they want. And I'll just show up for Zooms and answer questions on whatever page people are on. I want people to be able to buy something and start today. I don't want them to have to wait for a start date. And that way, if people are at different levels, they can move around in it. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, there's a lot that the puppies could do. And then if they buy the higher level, there's going to be one cheap one that just, here it is, take it and run. And then there's going to be another one where I'm available, maybe by Zoom and certainly by questions and look at video. So people will have more ways to get their questions answered. And that won't be very expensive. You know, I'm going to keep it, I'm thinking around $150 for the 6 weeks and access to me versus maybe, I don't know, 25 or $50 for just the, here it is, take it, run if you know how to train.
Excellent, thanks.
For almost anybody, as I understand from what you've said also, right? Just for working on refresher skills for all of us.
Well, I just didn't want to, I want people that want to know how to teach handling. Like my puppy had really sophisticated handling before he ever saw an obstacle, just with mark buckets, tubs, and stanchions. And I play around trees all the time. And he's just going to be so far ahead of the game because we all know the obstacles are the easy part. Everybody says that, but we don't have programs that actually emphasize that. So that's what I want to offer. And then with those videos being prerequisite videos, and people don't have to feel like, well, shit, I just bought this thing and I'm paying for hand in the collar and why you need a crate, you know, that's why they'll be free on YouTube, but they'll also be available right there as prerequisite videos so that you have easy access to them. You know, my tips on, I've got one that's how to love dog training that I'm hoping people will send to their family members that just, you know, we all know people in our lives where they're just like, they just don't care about dog training. They don't have that connection with the dog. And, you know, why the release word is so important and how to make it more valuable. But some stuff that my people on 3 and 4 dogs might not necessarily, they sure as shit don't want to buy it. They wouldn't mind reviewing it maybe, but they don't want to spend $50 or $150 on a class and then, you know, deal with stuff. So now that I can make it free and maybe get other people inspired to do agility. So that's my plan. Sorry, I've kept so many of you. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Loving it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
You
you,
bet.
Andy.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks, Pat. Or, sorry, Pat, I was talking to someone else. Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome, Becky.
Talk later.
See you.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thanks,
Sandy.
Sandy. I think that's a great idea for those prereqs to get people interested.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a few people I would encourage them for basic dog training.
Yeah, I've got this.
Something.
I made this 9-minute video. I should just give it to you guys. That is just about like why, and I'm asking the question, why do I love dog training? And I know so many people in my family, just regular people, that they're like, training the dog is like doing the dishes or something. It's like, yeah, I'll get around to it. So I just sent it to a couple of people, those people in my family, and said, does this inspire you? Does this like, and they said, yeah. They're like, we never thought about dog training like that. So, yeah, I'd like to get more people interested in communicating with I'd like to save some dogs, help some dogs, not just do agility.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea.
Thanks, Connie. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.